Do you get the flow correct? Because I've been translate them not exactly remember exactly what. So here we're gonna get started in just a minute or so. All right, awesome. Can people hear me in the back there? All right. Well, thank you guys for coming. I know it's really nice out, kind of rainy but nice. So thank you for coming in here and listening to people talk and us do the meetup. Today's meetup has some really exciting topics. It's going to be about diagnosis, data discovery, and diamond treatments. So before we get started, I would like to again thank you for coming. Thank you to our organizers. Apurva couldn't be here today. There's Dean in the back there. He's raising his hands. There's me. I'm Gargi, Greg, and Stephen. Woo! And we would like to thank Galvanize for the space. It's really nice of them to let us use this space. We are a fully community-funded organization, so please donate beer money if you want future beers. Thank you. If you want to connect with us on any kind of social media, we're on Slack, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and on Instagram as well now. We're Analyze Boulder on Instagram too. So please follow us on Twitter, join us on Slack and LinkedIn. We also need speakers for future meetups. We need speakers for our August meetup and beyond. So if you have a cool idea about anything data related that you want to present in 5 minutes, please go to speakers.analyzeboulder.com and sign up. In August, we are hoping to do a meetup, a team night actually. It's going to be on data bias and bias in artificial intelligence. If you are on Slack and have been following our data news channel, we had a few articles there on bias in AI. For example, ACL, you noticed a lot of bias in the facial recognition software by Amazon, or in China, they're using, again, facial recognition software to bias against minorities. So we're hoping any kind of data or AI bias that you might have faced or you want to talk about, please do sign up at this side. Can I get the other one? The battery died. Alright. So, yeah, please sign up for bias-related talks in August. This should be really interesting. It's a very important topic to talk about now. Finally, some announcements. Firstly, our next meetup will be very special. We do a July meetup with a few other meetup groups in the area. We combine them, and She Says, another meetup group in Boulder, usually has a big mixer event. We will announce the event and details soon. Other than that, we have a survey that we will be sending out on social media. Keep an eye out for it. It's going to be on what kind of meetup themes or ideas do you want to see for Analyze Boulder? What makes you keep coming back? Additionally, does anyone have any hackathons, conferences, workshops, collaborations, or projects that they want to announce? All right, no one? All right, let's go to jobs. Who's got jobs? You have only one hand, I'm sorry. Hi, I'm Julie. I manage the health data science team at Twitter.
we are currently hiring. We're looking for people who are passionate about trying to use the internet and helping us have a safe and informative platform for our users. If you are interested, we have positions in Boulder and also San Francisco and New York as well.
We have power. Worse, holy cow.
Anyway, if you're qualified major, lots of opportunities here as well. And so, if you have questions, we'll be around.
Anyone else have jobs? Somalogic is hiring a junior bioinformatic data scientist. We have one position for that. This is a really good entry-level position for anyone with a master's degree, so please come talk to me or Laura here after the meetup if you're interested. Anyone looking for jobs? Steve.
Hello. Well, just my education is where I had. I studied Boulder with the climate and computer science. Afterward, I was really full stack, development, finish that and opportunities for and decided to do more on the program side for data analytics. I could help. Could possibly be helpful.
Great, so full stack. Built-in Colorado is also a good resource for builtincolorado.com for jobs including data science and full stack. Looking for jobs?
Hi, I'm Karen. I'm just a graduate from Boulder in business program. So this is a master program, and before I entered this program, I have like 7 years project manager experience. So that I have a reason why I wanted to transfer to like data analysis because when I was promoted like a vice director, I think the reality is that data is a very important support the like strategy making. So that's why I just pursue a master degree. So in my master degree, I just learned like Python, modeling, and R, and SQL. So that is my experience. Thank you. So hi, this is Lise. So basically, we are a classmate, and I also graduated from the business analytics program. But before that, I came from a biology background, which I earned my undergrad in neuroscience and psychology. So I hope to do I'm currently finding for an analyst job that has some focus on modeling and some human behavior that kind of stuff. So yeah. I'm Julia, and I have a background in chemical and biological engineering. And then I realized I don't really want to work in a chemical plant. So I then got a mechanical engineering master's and worked in the medical device industry for 2 years. And I stuck with that with my good friends at General Assembly to earn some more expertise in analytics because I believe in data-driven decision making. And I hope to utilize that in the future.
Hey everyone, I'm Tyler. I just graduated in October with my doctorate in biochemistry, maybe did a lot of bioinformatics projects and that, and then I just went through a data science boot camp, so looking for a job, have a baby on the way, so I get any job. Anyone's hiring, I'll definitely talk to you all. Bye, nice.
There goes my phone. Okay, so my name is Marcelo Sanchez. What name is nice? Just graduated like these folks here from the Masters of Business Analytics at CU. And we had a focus on R, Python, Spark, SQL. I did the security track, so I have a little bit more of the Linux background too. And just looking for any data science job out there.
Hi, my name is Lakshya, and we all are from the same program actually. So my focus was more on decision science, and basically, like you said, like R, Python, Spark, and more advanced statistics and scientific stuff. So data modeling as well. So I'm not going to do any hands up, please. No. So thank you.
So the Analyze Boulder Slack channel has a jobs credit for those who are hiring, those who are looking for jobs. Anyone feel comfortable speaking up right now? They can have their names there, or when the next job that comes up in the next month.
Yeah.
Just put it.
Yeah, as Stephen said, we have a job Slack. Connect with people there if if you have jobs and are looking for a specific type of person, specific skill set, say it clearly on the Slack channel so people can connect with you there. All right, awesome. Now we come to the really fun part of this evening, the talks. So we start with Laura, who is going to be talking about treating central nervous system infections in Uganda. Then we'll go to Rob, who'll be talking about using the book Moneyball to analyze youth baseball. Sorry, I don't know much about baseball. And then we'll go to Josh. If he's stuck in traffic, so if he makes it on time here, we'll go to Josh. And he'll be talking about data discovery and memorization app. All right, without further ado, Laura.
Hello, thanks for coming to listen to me talk to you. I'm actually going to talk about situations in which you might not want to do a lot of data analysis. So as Gargi said, this is work that I did in a previous life about learning how to recommend treatment for central nervous systems for kids in Uganda. The problem is that there are a lot of kids in Central Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, who have these central nervous system infections. They're very serious. They need to be treated quickly. In this region, it's generally from malaria or cerebral meningitis. If you have malaria, you get treated with anti-malarials. If you have meningitis, you get treated with antibiotics. And you want to know quickly and cheaply with widely available clinical diagnostics what you should give these kids when they come in. This is a very under-resourced setting. This is Sub-Saharan Africa. This is not a place where you can run all of the best possible diagnostics that are available to us in our medical setting. And so that was the problem we set out to solve, is if you have a set of easily available, cheap data for kids coming into a clinic somewhere in Uganda, how do you decide how to treat them? The data that we had was 480 kids from Murare Hospital, which is actually one of the better hospitals in the country, better resourced. So these kids came in and they had extensive diagnoses. We knew what caused their infections at the end. We got a full health history. We had the full treatment information. And crucially, we had follow-up. So we knew which kids improved and which kids, unfortunately, did not. They came to my team at Penn State with the idea that we could build a really sophisticated machine learning classifier based on this really deep information, because 480 patients is huge data in this setting, right? Like, this is hard data to gather. You're never going to have millions of data points. And so we had to walk them back from that idea and say, let's use the best simple techniques that we have to build the best recommendation classifier for you. And the model that we ended up using was Bayesian logistic regression, and this is just the math slide. But Bayesian logistic regression is the same as logistic regression. You have the probability that someone is in class A is the inverse logit of this linear function of weights times parameters. And then you put this whole likelihood, prior, etc., into your Bayesian machine. We used MCMC sampling. There's other sampling you can do, and you get out a posterior weight distribution. You can use that to make predictions. The crucial thing for us is that you have this nice posterior on the weight, so we used those posteriors to simplify the model. So we kept only the parameters that are that were really important in the model, and the results of the machine learning classifier are this nice confusion matrix. So you need antibiotics, antimalarials, both or none. This is what you get. Diagonal is right. It was 67% accurate. That's okay. But the people that are classified wrong are classified wrong in two different ways. They're either overtreated or they're undertreated. And in this setting, undertreated is worse. Unless you're really, really worried about antibiotic resistance, undertreating these kids is worse. You want to give them everything so that they get better. And so we didn't want to analyze this classifier in the standard way. We wanted to have different penalties for overtreatment, so this factor, or undertreatment, this factor. This means you got it right. So we defined this return of a particular policy. This maxes out at 1, lower is bad, higher is good. So we want to analyze the machine learning policy against other possible policies, right? So do we always want to use fancy methods? Not necessarily. We could also just give everyone everything. Or we could do what the doctors are already doing and tell them you're doing fine, you're doing the best that you could possibly do. These are just heat maps of the return on each of these different types of policies for whether you care more about over or under treating. Yellow is good, purple is bad. So you can see if you care more about under treating, then if you care more about, this is wrong. If you care more about over treating, you want to do the intake policy. If you care more about under treating, you want to do the kitchen sink policy. And so then if you map that onto where in this parameter space you would actually use these different policies, the machine classifier does well when you want to be highly accurate, but if you don't care as much about accuracy, you just care about results, then you might want to do something else and not do any of this type of analysis. I think I'm out of time. That's the last slide though, so that's good.
Question. I was wondering, how is the return different from the F1 score?
So the F1 score has equal weighting on the different. So like I could, if I went to the return, I could say that there's 0 penalty for misclassifying someone in the undertreated category or vice versa. So it's just like, it's like a weighted.
Was the machine classifier interpretable? Like, would the doctors have agreed to treat people according to that policy?
Yes, because that was another reason that we used the logistic classifier. So you could say this was the ranking of the parameters that were the most important. And we had medical people on the team, and they were like, yeah, those we think make sense. So.
What were your most important features?
There were things like fever, body weight of the kid. There were things like, are they having seizures? Like that kind of clinical stuff.
Have you done some kind of like A/B testing or something like there can be a thin line that you can use it?
I don't understand the question.
Like hypothesis testing or something like that?
No.
I'm gonna ask a totally non-data question. Like, what are the bad side effects of just throwing the kitchen sink at everybody? Because if you have kids with fevers and seizures, that sounds like
Yeah, in this setting for this disease, I'd say just treat everyone. If you're talking about a higher resource setting for a disease with lower consequences, you might start worrying about antibiotic resistance. Antimalarial resistance is actually a thing. So that's something that you have to work with experts and stakeholders to be like, which of these categories do you care more about?
So one thing I was wondering, when you were training the data, did you split the data into training and test set, or did you use data validation?
Training and testing.
I've got a question. Is there a third classification that could be somewhere in between these two? Some other disease that is not?
Yes, there are. So in this model, this was mostly like a proof of concept for the World Health Organization. Like, this is a way that you could do things. There were kids that had like tuberculosis, but there were 3 of them. So.
Were you resource constrained in the treatment? Could you throw the kitchen sink at everyone?
Yes, you could. So this is important advice, actually.
What was the outcome of the study? Was anything just changed in Uganda based off of this?
In process.
Okay, 2 more questions.
How many people were on your team that you worked with, and who sponsored it?
So Doctors Without Borders and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation were our funding source. I was the data science team, but there were a lot of there were probably like 30 clinical people who designed the study and collected the data.
More questions?
It seems like there's a lot of useful overlap between healthcare and data science, but it seems like, at least in this country, there's a lot of regulation and red tape that you have to go through before deploying a solution that actually impacts patients. Was that easier to do in Uganda because there might have been less regulation? Was that harder to do because it was maybe under-resourced?
It is easy in this setting because we did a lot of work to get all of the stakeholders on board before we started this study. I think the regulatory atmosphere is probably a little less stringent there too, but mostly it's because like Doctors Without Borders and the World Health Organization and stuff, like we had a collaborator in the Ugandan Ministry of Health. Like it's not like some NGO coming in and telling them how to run like their system without buy-in from the people who are making decisions. Thanks.
Thank you, Laura. Next, we have Rob on a completely different topic on how to win youth baseball tournaments using Moneyball.
Thank you. Again, I'm Robert Pyle, and I'm going to talk about using Moneyball to win youth baseball tournaments. The book was written in 2003 by Michael Lewis. It was about the Oakland A's. Became a movie in 2011. It was it's probably my all-time favorite movie. Why did the A's use statistical analysis? Because they had to compete with the small market team, the New York Yankees, who were buying all their players. One of the premises of the book was college players give better results. If you get on base, that results in more wins. And I applied this to youth baseball. And we have a little clip here. It should play. And here we go. And no sound. All right, and we'll go. Well, the scouts are on base percentage. The scouts are asking the analyst, "Why do you like this player?" And he says, "Because he gets on base." Here's some baseball definitions, and these are the thing. Batting average is hits divided by plate appearances minus walks. minus hits by pitch. A walk is when the pitcher throws 4 balls before you get 3 strikes. A hit by pitch, that's pretty self-explanatory. On base percentage equals hits plus bases on balls plus hits by pitch divided by at bats plus bases on balls plus hits by pitch plus sacrifice flies. This is a good measure of how many times, what percentage of the time you get on base. Slugging percentage equals singles plus 2 times doubles plus 3 times triples plus 4 times home runs divided by at bats. There's a great app called Game Changer. What you want to do is you want to use put the highest on-base percentage players in the front of the lineup, the highest slugging in the middle, and fill in the rest. You want to optimize the lineup with the data from the Baseball Musings website. You input the players' names, and their slugging percentage. Hit submit, you get the best lineups, the worst lineups. You emphasize to your players, you do not care how they get on base, whether it's a hit, base on ball, hit by pitch, reach on error. Outs decrease expected runs. No sacrifice bunts. That is bad. Your expected wins are your runs squared divided by runs squared plus runs allowed squared. You put in the data, some data from our 9-year-old team. You get the best lineups, and when you run it, it tells you what your expected runs are for lineup you put in. Then it tells you your expected runs for the best lineup, and it says 12.318. So you tell your players, the computer says you're going to score 15 runs, and they'll score 15 runs for you. It shows the worst lineups. The difference between the worst lineups and the best lineups is 1.14 runs. How many times do you lose a game by 1 run? Our results in real life, 4 Little League tournament wins. Both kids went to the Waco, Texas Little League Regionals and played on ESPN. 4 travel team tournament wins. We beat a team in the state finals to go to Little League Regionals that we had lost to 5 out of 6 times by a hit by pitch, reach on air, out, double, walk off win. Some of my future research is trying to get Game Changer to make a warlike stat in there, and WAR in Major League Baseball is wins above replacement. That's not, these guys are paid. You can't really do that with youth baseball, but I want to work in errors and putouts, and not all errors are created the same. If you make an error with nobody on base versus an error when the bases are loaded and 3 runs scored, it could, be a problem. Or maybe with two players on base. And a couple books, of course, Moneyball, and another book is called The Book Playing the Percentages in Baseball. It has all the baseball stats you need. And then questions.
So when you're working with 9-year-olds, they're a little less consistent than pro players. I was wondering if the statistics still work, or how differently, how good are the statistics for a 9-year-old team versus professionals?
Well, what we would do is we would gather statistics throughout the year, and as certain players would emerge to be higher on-base percentages, I would redo the lineup. And so they were definitely not very consistent as compared to Major League Baseball. So I would redo the lineup a lot.
Good, quick question. Is there any betting in the parking lot between parents?
No.
Since you already said it.
Art? I didn't hear that. No, that's a no. That's cause for ejection. A couple parents did get ejected, including myself. I did get ejected. I did get ejected and all-stars because they kept asking the pitch count. And that's a whole other deal, you know.
I was just curious if you're interested in seeing how scales with age. It's like at 9, you basically just have to watch every pitch. You get a walk every time at that age. But then like after they get into like more advanced leagues and whatnot, maybe these metrics won't hold up, or like to see how these players at fair and more advanced ages.
Oh, that's a really good question. In youth baseball, in tournaments, basically, if you got a walk, you're on third base. And as you get older, you gotta hit the ball more because you're gonna strike out if you don't put the ball in play. Because they're not gonna walk as much. And one of the keys was one of our youth tournament team. You also have to watch the pitchers, and our pitchers one year had less than a 10% walk rate. So we incorporated that in there too. That was really unheard of. I've never ever had a team that was that good. So they have to hit the ball more as they get older.
I actually have like a million questions for you. I'll probably talk to you later, but
Sure.
I was wondering, did you look into things such as like weather and stuff like that when it came to the state of collection? Just curious how that played out.
Well, that's a good question because I used to be a meteorologist. But I didn't really look into weather that much. Oh, okay, here's what. Okay. One time we had a really cold game. Very cold, it was cold. We put the baseball bats in a golf bag with hand warmers to make the bats warmer so the kids would not sting their hands. And I told them that if the bats are warm, you'll get more hits. And we also used to put the bats in the sun before the games so the bats would be warmer. So we did use weather.
Hats for bats.
Yeah. We did use that from Major League.
Who was the poor individual who had to keep stats for all of these?
Okay, I did that, and I had a custom program written. And this is before Game Changer, but now Game Changer has usually have a designated parent who keeps track of all that stuff.
And when in the season did you get strategy? Getting in the middle.
After we had some data, you want to get at least 10 at bats or so. You really need 30, but after we had significant data, 3, 4, 5 games.
I'm assuming you never ran an incorrect lineup as a test, but I'm wondering, would it be? I'm a bit of a baseball novice, so forgive me if this question is silly, but would it be appropriate to run a Monte Carlo on take what each player actually did at bat and then run them in different orders and see what the outcome of the game sort of hypothetically would have been if the lineup had been different?
You can do that with the Baseball Musings website. You can put in all the combinations of orders, and it will tell you the expected run for each outcome. It gives you a whole lot of data. So you can do that. One time, we, before the All-Star first game in Waco, Texas, we ran the statistical analyzer, set the lineup, and we set the all-time record for runs scored in one inning in Waco, Texas, for the southwestern region. That was probably a coincidence because the team we played was pretty bad.
Thank you, Rob.
So there's a few people here from, is that the CU Masters Analytics program? I went to that many years ago. Do they still make you watch Moneyball as your first homework assignment? Cool. Isn't that a good start to a grad program? Watch a movie.
If you haven't seen that movie, it's really fun to watch.
All right, on that note, we have Josh talking about the Data Discovery App.
Hello. So today I'm going to talk about just a new app I discovered the other day from Lyft. They just recently open source called Amundsen. So historically, like I'm a data engineer. I don't know data scientist. A lot of data sets I found are in silos. You've got them in data warehouses, data lakes. Sometimes you're a startup, you might just have it within your transactional store. Nowadays, you also might have it in like Kafka or something. And I'm bombarded every day with requests. I want to get this data. I want to see it. I want to understand it. And a lot of times I just grant access, but access alone usually isn't enough. You aren't really going to be able to understand the story the data is telling you if you just have access. You need some more information. This is a quote that I've heard variations of this over the years. 80% of a data scientist's time is just spent cleaning and looking for data. So a lot of times as a data engineer, I'm asking myself, how can I decrease the amount of time an analyst or a data scientist is spending on these tasks? And over the years, we've done documentation efforts. We have an internal wiki. We make that available within our org, but frankly, I created this once when I set up these data sets initially, and I haven't updated them since. And that tends to be the way these things go a lot of times. So ultimately, what I'm hoping for is we want some methods to sift through this and get to the good stuff quickly. A little bit of a side note, metadata, I feel like is kind of growing in importance, especially as our data sizes are increasing, because you just need more stuff that can describe it for you. That way, you kind of eliminate the person describing it, you just have the data describe itself on some level, hopefully. With that, I'm going to talk about Amundsen. So that's just a fun picture. Amundsen was, it's named for the Norwegian explorer, the first one to reach the South Pole. And in a nutshell, it allows a user to search for annotated data sets within an organization. So it can answer questions such as, does this data exist? Where does it exist? What's the source of truth? Who owns it? Can I trust it? Are there privacy concerns? And how popular is it within your organization? With that, I've got a little demo that I recorded the other day. So there we go. So this is Amundsen. It's very alpha at this point. Super blank page. You can see it's just like a search interface, kind of like Google. You go in, you type something. I created a data set called movies. So we are going to look at that. And there's a click through, and this is the actual data set page. So you can see you've got the title of it. This is schema name. So you've got movies, demo.movies. It is a non-partition table. And these data points here, where you say data about movies, your release, your movie was released, etc. These are all coming from the database itself. It's the actual description within Postgres. It tells you the type of the data, the column names, and over on the right is even more interesting stuff. So you have got ownership. That's me, because nobody else is using this. Obviously, there's no frequent users because it's literally just me. I'm skipping ahead in just a second. You'll see to tags. You can go ahead and add different tags. I just named it movies data. I think I'm about to type something called sales data or something. You can just tag it so people can find your data sets later on. These are all, the right profile are all plugins. See, I had to refresh it to actually get the sales data load up. And then the table profile is the last one. This actually shows you raw data from the database. You can also set up controls within this to not allow you to see like PII and things like that. On that right-hand profile, there are additional plugins which Lyft has sort of stubbed out at this point. So you have to actually like write a plugin to enable it at this point because it's all proprietary on their end for their implementation. But they did stub it out. That's actually, I actually built that table profile using some of their stubs myself. So yeah, that is really it in a very, very quick nutshell. So thank you. Any questions?
You mentioned that you created a wiki many years ago or whatever, and then it's just sat there. One of the things I recall Airbnb, and I don't know if it's doing this as well, is in conjunction with this, they felt that they needed to have some sort of discipline around, hey everybody, this is how we calculate costs per acquisition, or lifetime value and all that stuff, which may or may not be in this metadata. So I'm wondering how do you feel that your wiki is going to be improved by this new technology?
So a lot of what I'm doing is I'm pulling data sets from databases. So for me at least, it eliminates the need to go in and manually tag all those. A lot of those are going to be self-describing. The one that I showed you, I feel like is a good example. Because if we can have the developers tagging their tables initially in Postgres, I can just import that raw and not have to worry about that. And then, maybe go in and tag those other data sets that do involve LTV calculations and whatnot by hand where needed. So I didn't really show that you can overwrite those data, those column descriptions as well. So.
So I work at a company with a very, very large data catalog, think like hundreds of tables with thousands to 10,000s of columns. And so you got a very nice, like, normalized data set there. So, type something, a table, you can feel great. What are your thoughts on tools where your data is more scattered, say, in like warehouse or Starsky model? Are there features of ADSynth that address that, or are there other tools you come across that can help out in those situations where data scientists might need to join across 10 tables or something like that to actually get something use?
So their actual initial, like Lyft's initial connector that they built was Presto. And if you're familiar, Presto can connect to like a lot of different things. I was just playing with it the other day, Redis even, and like all sorts of different data stores. So I think that's primarily the way they're going about it. At the moment, they've got Presto, Postgres, because I just added that, and indirectly Redshift through that. And I think BigQuery was added recently, and they're accepting anything from the community. It's not super difficult. You can write a connection to SQL Alchemy, you can write a connection to that. So yeah, they're pretty much accepting everything that they can at this point. So.
The example that you showed there said something like, no partitions data is available for all dates. I'm wondering if there had been partitions, would it give you any statistics around, like, say, row counts per partition?
I don't remember offhand. I think there is, as I know there is a particular plugin within Instant that did something regarding like data description, and I know they're also pulling data about usage in particular, so like how many times a query is accessed, in particular with Presto, it's tied in a bit with that, and it's like, it goes through like your query log that says like, hey, user X queried this table, and then reports on it and analyzes it. And a lot of this backend side of things is, it's actually really interesting. They're using graph database on the back end to connect it, so that way they can describe things and be like, oh, user X accessed this table, or something along those lines. So it's certainly possible. I don't know.
Thank you, Josh. I think today is a good example of the breadth of the talks we have usually at Analyze Boulder. So if you have an idea for a talk and want to give a talk in front of a friendly audience, just sign up at speakers.analyzeboulder.com, please. Finally, if you need an icebreaker, since we want to do an August meetup with a bias, input data and AI topic, if you have examples of your experience with bias or an interesting article you've read on bias, great icebreaker to talk to people about. I'm sure the speakers will be happy to answer questions if they have time. Enjoy and have more beer. Thank you for coming.
That was awesome. I feel like you're talking about going so much more. Oh, I could 20 minutes on. I could go, yeah. I could go. I could stand on that. Yeah. It's a lot of fascinating if somebody did and then like in October you get it saying, here's my results. Cool. Oh yeah, that's good. I know, it's or like predicting who's gonna be voted for the All-Star. I mean, they all have to do it like 60% around. One of the things I have to do is decide, well, if I'm not passionate about season, I would start a new lineup based on that. Oh, one of the things that you know, I haven't done nice players. Well, I think the worst thing about the lineup is oh, you need to break the block. In other words, early on the lineup, so you'll never get to the other guys. And then it doesn't make any sense. Once you splash that, because they suck. You don't ever put the kids in, you know, if you sometimes hold him it's number 9. Yeah, that was our first homework assignment. Oh, really? That's why I asked them. Like, they still do that. Oh, wow. Yeah, like watch Moneyball. There's just a few scenes in that movie. You hear what they're talking about. I just watched it. I used to be like, I like that movie. I see it. And now that I have like 3 years, I watch it. I try to work with it. Yeah. But in terms of the value out of it, what is happening in that movie? Like, they're talking about it. Yeah, like, okay, you should always take the movie. There's scenes where they're like, you should always take don't talk about it. Don't talk. Yeah, they talk about all that stuff. And it's like, that's where it really matters out there. It's like education, communication, stakeholders. Oh, marketing. So that way, I'm like, so much value is really on. The second book I had up there, I love every situation and the expected marks. And I would tell the kids, it's like, if you go on dates, that's what happened on the team. It's a habit on, now you speak up stuff, but it is there's pretty many kids how it's probably important. They had every situation. So if you had first and second and nobody else, the expected runs were like 0.7. If you have second and third and 1 out, the expected runs for that is 0.5. So by doing the second run, there's not cool. Hey, I'm back.
That's what you're with.
Yeah. It's so like sports. We could ask Josh, you know about hockey too. Oh, take the days out of it. Hi. Hi, good to see you. Yeah, you too. This was smaller attendance, but expected given it's June and beautiful. Except now.
Crazy outside.
Yeah, it's got me wondering about like
I'm waiting. I see this storm coming in a second, so I'm like, God damn it. Get home. Yeah. If I left right now on my bike, I could beat it home probably, but now I've got to wait 10 minutes. I think they're doing that in football. Where it'll fizzle out. That's all right. So, but yeah, this was a pretty good rendition of what we do. Usually we have.
So you think it's still?
Oh yeah, 30% working. It's good football. Yeah, it's good and it's easy. It's 4%. What are you gonna do? Yeah, like I was saying, there's so much that could be done.
And then and you, even if like let's say you sold them one thing, you know if you sold them, they'll go to the place. Once you start learning about more about machine learning and like video for you, you may have Amazon machine learning.
How do you engage?
You can sit there and tweet like why or just wondering like if there's a way to program like something
no idea.
so I try this and it's so good. Like so
Somehow I passed the test. But yeah, well, that's it. So that would be the challenge. It could be a lot of fun to solve. It could be like half or a third of the speakers come to this small, and that's how it's small. You guys are still doing 20 slides, 20 slides, 15 seconds. To figure out what's going to add to the U.S. baseball team. We're gonna go get dinner in a minute. So I'm gonna head out, but I'll see you tomorrow. Today was my Thursday, tomorrow is my Wednesday. So I'm watching meetings all day. Tomorrow I have 2 meetings. It's okay. It was very good meetings. And I think all of this is unlimited. I saw him today walking around talking to people there. Yeah, I mean, that would be a cool job. If I wasn't a financial advisor, that would be a cool job.
Now I think sports join a team and like help them win something.
You watch SpongeBob?
Yeah, I saw research. It's like even though I saw the movie at the time, I wasn't. So I was like, wow, yeah, that's right. Like,
So the Red Sox, so next month is not happening. Right. August. Which is good because we have nobody planned for August. If you think of anybody this next month, hey, it's this really well. Send them our way because I want to build up our pipeline to do like 7 months. And then we can do other stuff. Cool. Yeah. They've been doing that for years, but they haven't won the World Series. That's the problem. That's the ultimate.
well, and that's what I was learning with sports. I was like, you know, analytics, yes, it is huge, but you know, when I was like mentioning weather or like maybe the type of game, you know, someone could get extra motivated. I wonder if analytics, you know, those type of things, or just give you just a higher percentage chance. That's why I was interested.
I don't know. Have you ever watched like Major League Baseball when they talk about the StatCast, how far the ball's hit, and the trajectory? I think there's
I've always been bigger basketball, football, but yeah, I've seen those.
I think there's weather data in there.
Yeah. So the wind's blowing, obviously, against you. You shouldn't go as far.
Yeah, I think there is weather data. I use my rudimentary weather data in one of the bats.
So what's interesting is like, then I thought about, I was like, after I asked the question, I was like, yeah, but if the weather's bad for them, it's bad for the other team. Even out, I don't know, unless one team maybe is more used to certain conditions.
We tried to make the bats warmer because those bats are like Kevlar, And man, if it was cold, you hit the ball, it's just hard on the hands.
Well, I would imagine. So here's something. So I've never really played baseball. I guess like let's say it's windy. Here you like say I guess you would call more like a high flyer versus like a line drive. Maybe driving versus. I don't know.
You're definitely on 45s. More balls on the ground.
Pretty good. Now I was asking some questions. Very interesting.
We're talking about football. I think it's really fun to get into football now. Because they give the stats on, what you should do in these situations and what you
I don't even care about the game. Yeah, something like that. Just give them a reason for it. I told him it's like I'm more of a football, basketball guy, all the but like he was on baseball. I was like, that's why I started my football. I was like, if you can get machine learning to really study film on a coach, and they'll say if you show them this kind of coach, it's kind of like the situation. A lot of coaches. That's why I
Oh, here's another application. So, you ever look at the 538 log? You ever heard of 538 log? 538, Nate Silver. And so, for the NCAA basketball tournament, he does his predictions. So I'll play against my family in the tournament, and I'll kill him. I just do Nate Silver's predictions, and I'll look at all this expected win percentage, and then I'll do that, and they'll try to pick upsets, and I'll beat them every time.
I would say that is the one thing that has not been predicted yet is a perfect NCAA practice.
Oh, that's not
Yeah, they offered up even $1 billion. They're saying it's that hard.
It's not happening.
There's got to be a way to build some kind of learning model.
There's an element of luck.
It's got to be a little bit of luck. Yeah.
A lot of that 15 seed that's going to run.
Because there's always that one upset, and that's kind of what I was referring to. Like, I guess weather wouldn't play in that, but like the hype of the game, or you're an underdog, motivates certain people. Like, is there a way to even like weight it?
Yeah, all that stuff is, especially in like football, there's a 3-point home advantage. Football, just to be in home. If you were to say, hey, I'm going to play Atlanta in December, oh, no, they probably have that. It's probably closer to 2 years. But nothing against Miami, it's not as much better. That's all. That's all in the Las Vegas.
Like in football, like a lot of people fear playing in Denver.
Yeah.
A lot of people aren't playing in such altitude.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, look up there.
they got Kansas recently. It's huge. Oh, last time Kansas was here, they lost. They lost like 206 times.
When I landed here and I went hooping, I felt the altitude. Yeah, it's like a real thing. Like, when I first got here, I went hooping, I was just like, I felt like a little like, oh, I'm a military grad, but I've never been in such high altitude, and I was more coming from the south, which the south is the south, like in here, like no humidity, which feels pretty good though. And with the altitude, like I felt like when I first got here,
So much there, like girlfriend was here, she got outside.
I was researching a lot about the Amazon machine learning cameras, and I was wondering maybe I don't need to watch it, I can plug it into film and get it to study, just years of a specific film, see how well it did. These years like old things to get it to be played, I've been wondering.
Well, tell me about this machine learning.
So it's an Amazon machine learning cameras. But like I said, so far they got a machine learning camera. It kind of watches. You can tell whether customers have it in the store or not. Things that recognize people and that nature. But now it's got me wondering. It should be able to recognize plays, but if it does that, once it's way and stuff like that, if I get it to study enough in my field, over the last X amount of years, the years of the last 5 years, I wonder what kind of predictive model I get. And if I can get anything near like 70 to 80%,
What kind of play he's going to run?
yeah, well, I used to play defense, so the thing about defense is we wanted to size, and we know if you show him this in this situation, and I can show him something even though we know we're not running it, because we are pushing my say, if you show him this, so just to kind of trigger. But obviously, no coach would want to run that. That's usually get like 80%. Wait, 60. I'm not going to go up there. That's kind of like the point, So you got me interested in it.
Same with baseball, it's the same hockey. Hockey, if you're in a shootout, where does that player typically go? They go 5 or they go out, right? What are they going to throw based on the counter? There's a lot of different, it's all the same thing, it's just different context.
Everyone, I don't care who you are, especially coaches, you have a tendency. Even if you disguise it as you are, it's there.
Oh, yeah.
That's why you got me wondering. Yeah.
Think about like football, you're going to football with the shootouts, like, oh my God, movies would kill me. One of the things I didn't tell you is, when we won the state championship, the other team had some tournament teams. So I followed their tournament teams. And then I downloaded all the stats of where they hit the ball. So I knew where they hit, everybody hit the ball. We had charts for every player. I would move like over in second base, over 2 steps. The ball would hit right to, he wouldn't have to move. And he watched Rockies games, they showed that on television. I did that for YouTube, and like 7 years ago. And then another thing I did is when you talk about, somebody asked about pitching. I knew that in our final game, I knew if we could take a lot of pitches, we could get to the next pitcher who had a tendency to walk and was wild, and that's how we got to the game. So we won the game. We got the other pitcher out because we got to the pitch count. The whole time during the state championship game, the third baseman was going to come in and pitch. He was screaming at the pitcher. Pitch count, pitch count, pitch count. And he's throwing balls, and we're just taking a lot of pitches. And he knew he was going to come in and have it up. And he came in and he screwed it up.
Yeah, he already beat himself too.
He was yelling at the guy, screaming at himself. And he came in and walked somebody, hit somebody, and then we had that was great.
So I'm going to basically be talking about pitch count. So it's like he's going to get certain pitches and they're going to swap out. So you can tell your guys, hey, let a few go by.
Yes, right.
You know what I'm saying? Just
in Little League, there's a pitch count limit, and the limit was like, it might have been 85. That's a lot. Yeah. That's a lot of pitches. Yeah. It might have been 7. It might have been 75. I forget what it was. Well, this is the thing I want to talk to about some sports with. They have, I'm going to get a good tip.
Yeah, well, I have mine over there. I'm going to still be here. I'm going to get my beer.
High school baseball is in pitch limited for high school baseball. For one pitch, that's 1 inch. And if you pitch 110 pitches, you have to take only 3 days off. How many times do the major league pitchers throw 110 pitches? First of all, and then how many times do they come back after 3 days rest? Never. They always take at least 4 days, and sometimes there's a day off in between, so they're taking 5 days. High school baseball has 110 minutes and only 3 days, and the coaches pitch these guys out. It's insane. Yeah.
Sorry for the
Oh yeah, no worries. We're just talking about how it's so fascinating to break down sport, kind of sport, and what level can you get to understand. So in baseball, pitch count. We were talking earlier about infield advantage, different ballparks, so many different variables. It's got to be at this point, usually league, it's got to be in the thousands. Oh yeah, and the amount of compared to like 5 years ago, it's just insane. With the stat cast and all that stuff, it's not, and it's cool. They incorporated all of that stuff. I did watch some of the Rockies games. They talk about that. I mean, of course, I don't know if we talk more about it. I know that in the past, the Broncos, they have an analytics guy who's got a channel that head coaches website. Oh, okay. X% chance this is what it's going to be the next play. And I think they're like, cool, call this play. If you watch Major League players, if you watch real closely, I noticed that this year they're pointing out the sheet when the batter comes up. And they are. And that's how they're shifting. Instead of looking at the dugout, yeah, being like, oh, this way. They're sitting there looking like, yeah. Another thing, my son has against the Thunder baseball. They have this software that does it's called Rapsoda, and it figures out his spin rate. And I was telling the other guy, spin rate, how much the ball breaks, how much the ball moves. So he's figured out that he can just change his hand position on the pitch, and he can get a fastball to move 10 inches. Like, and he says, I don't know how I'm doing it, but it's doing something, and it moves. Sometimes it moves this way, sometimes it moves that way, sometimes it drops. And he has access to some minor league guys, and the minor league guys say, oh yeah, just turn your hand a little bit. It's a cutter. Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah. And he's like, wow, this really moves. It's kind of like a cutter and a slider. Yeah. Yeah. So he fools around with that. And he watches YouTube to figure out all these pitches and he can go. We're not even 10 years ago. Yeah, it's interesting stuff. I can talk again on this or more advanced or you haven't. Yeah, I don't know what we're going to do for the next one. We're talking about doing a bias theme. And we're also like, well, what else can we do around this? How can we encourage other talks? And then how can we work with you guys Boulder? And there's a lot of things pending right now. Well, one of the things in terms of bias is the weather models. So I like to look at the numbers. So let's say there's precipitation coming in, say, 5 days out. Yeah. I know that there's a bias in the model that's going to bring it in half a day early. So I know that precip is going to really be 5.5 to 6 days out. And so that's one of the biases in their models. In terms of, they have a lot of trouble forecasting big snowstorms in, say, March and April, because the tendency of the model is to go towards climatology. So the tendency is to go towards the average temperature. So, if it's 60 or 70, 60, then I see a big precip on maybe the 5th day in April or March. I'm thinking, that's probably going to be snow. Then the next 12-hour run, it'll get colder. The next 12-hour run, it'll start out at 50 and have, half an inch of precip. And then by the day before, it's a high forecast high is 35. So it can't get that huge drop 5-6 days in advance. It takes successive runs. And I did my thesis, meteorology thesis on that, on data, changing initial conditions, bifurcations, different outcomes of things, weather, and stuff. That's pretty fun. I like to talk on snow because that's what I like.
Well, if you want to talk about snow, then think about something to do. You know how this rolls now.
Yeah.
Picture dress, whether it's August or beyond, doesn't matter.
Yeah, I can find the data. I can talk about the May 21st.
Whatever you want to do, just send us the talk.
I have to think about what I can talk about.
Yeah, you got
It's
time.
pretty cool. It has 30 models. I don't even know what they are anymore. And you can click on them and take one of them out and see what the thing is.
Yeah.
And so I did it like the day before. It said Broomfield is going to get 4 inches of snow, and they got 4 inches of snow. But a few days out, there was nothing. As it got closer and closer, it got better and better. That would be really good if we could predict precipitation far out. I also forecasted for the Little League too. And I tell them, I said, look, there's a big snowstorm coming. You should move your games. Move them to a day earlier. And they're like, the one year we had 47 inches in April in 2013 and like 12 inches in May. And we barely got enough games in to qualify for All-Stars. This has been fun. Thanks so much.
Similar to a bias team?
Oh, Joel. Yeah, Joel's really What about finance? Can I talk about that? That's what I do. I can talk about survivorship bias and mutual funds. That's really interesting. It's cool. There's no predictive analytics in that at all. Figure it out, man. Tell us how you want to talk about it. I might want to do that too. Because I have a great presentation.